Morning, guys. All right, today we are going to look at a program called Noteflight. It is totally free. You just sign up for an account and then you can start composing. This week's going to be all about composing. So we reviewed rhythms last week, quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, and their rests. And this week you're going to put it into practice by writing your own rhythm or melody exercises. So I'm going to share my screen and take you through Noteflight. So the address is just noteflight.com. And I'm already signed in, but it'll ask you, have you been here before? If not, do you want to create an account? And you just say, yes, please, I will create an account. I did have to provide a valid email address. It sent me an email to confirm my account. So you will need to put in something other than your school email address that you use for Office 365. So you can see I've already composed 2 melodies, but I'm going to take you guys through creating your own. So up at the top, there's a button that says Create. You just click on that. I love this program because you can do so much with it. It's like a free version of Finale, which is what I use in class sometimes. So create a new score. I'm going to start from a blank score sheet. I haven't played around with this option yet, but I'm sure I will. Okay. And you have a ton of options. Wow. I'm going to move there we go. Okay. So up here you have your kind of like menu button. Just looks like a whole note inside of a slanted rectangle. Then you have your play button. You can listen to anything that you've written, which is awesome. You can see if you like the melody or like, ooh, I don't like that note. Or the rhythm, ooh, I don't like that rhythm. You can go back and change it. Transcribe is something that we won't use quite yet. Record, I think you have to pay for the program to use that feature. Save, you can save your songs like I just showed you on the other screen. I have 2 songs saved. Parts is where you can decide what kind of parts you want to have on your song. So there's orchestra instruments, there's band instruments, percussion instruments, and piano. Right now there's just a grand piano up there, and I'll show you how you can decide if you just want the treble clef or just the bass clef. So that's parts. You can add as many parts as you want, or you can have as few parts as you want. Formatting, I haven't played around with, but I'm sure it's just moving things around on the screen. Page view, zoom. You can do zoom to fit. That's really big to me. Woo, if you want to just look at one measure at a time. I like to be able to see it and still use my menus over here. Score details is going to bring up some things that we don't really need right now. Okay. Over here on this guy, these 3 lines, it's going to pull up all of these different features that you can use for Noteflight. So your score, this I already have at the top of the screen. So if it's clicked with a check mark, it means that it is permanently on your toolbar. Edit, undo, I don't need that. Duration is the different kinds of notes. You can see I already have that one up here on my toolbar. Rhythm, those are kind of like fancy rhythms. Duration is really what we know of as rhythm. So we want the duration bar up there. Pitch, tempo, it automatically sets the tempo at 120. I'm actually going to go ahead and set that to 80 because 120 is really fast. So I'll set tempo there. Text, if you want to add lyrics to your song, you can use the text bar. Measure, I do like to have this one pinned up there because it's got the like add a measure, delete a measure, put in a measure of rest, change the key signature, treble clef, change it to bass clef. I want a double bar line at the end, so I do like to have that one pinned up there. Layout, we don't really need. Repeat sign, if you want to put a repeat sign at the beginning or end, get fancy with it, you can. If you want to add in dynamics, you can. We'll do some of this later in the week. I'm just going to show you how to use it today. Articulation, again, if you want to get fancy with slurs and ties and accents. Ornaments, for the fancy ones in the group. Notes, this is if you want to change what kind of note it is. So sometimes we have notes that don't have stems. For percussion, they have some more specific ones like hit. If you want to change the stem direction, you can. If we were doing a chorus piece and we had a spoken part, they would put this crisscross, the X, instead of a note head so that you know to speak it. So those types of things are in there. Voice, if you put multiple voice parts on a line, like sometimes the soprano and alto line are on the same treble clef, you would have an upper voice and a lower voice, and it would just change the stem direction. So that's what that means. Tab, I haven't used those. Line, solid line, brackets. Brackets are for like first and second endings. If you want to change the color of your notes so that you know which ones you're working with. Sound, I haven't used the sound quite yet. And then view is like the zoom in, zoom out type thing. Okay, so pinned up here I have measure, duration, and score. And those are really the only ones that we'll need for your first assignment. So right now it's got the grand staff, and I don't need the grand staff. I really just like to have this treble clef one. If you're a bass clef user, my little baritones, you can just use the bass clef. And to do that, you would just click on the clef that you don't need and then hit your backspace button or your delete button. And it's gonna leave you with just your bass clef. Or, I'm gonna undo that. You can click on just the bass clef and delete that, and then you just have your treble clef, which is what I'm gonna stick with. Okay, so your durations in there, we've got our whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, and then 16th notes. Notice if you hover over the note, it shows you the name of it. So if you're not sure, like, ooh, is that the 8th note or the 16th note? I can't tell how many flags are there. Just put your cursor over it, your mouse, and it'll tell you which one it is. It does have a tie and a dotted rhythm, so if you want to put in a dotted rhythm, you can do it right there. I like for this to be in the key of F, because that's what we sight read in a lot. So I'm going to change the key signature. Right now it's in C major, and you can leave that there, that's fine. Or you can choose a different key. I'm going to choose F, which has one flat. And then major, and I'll hit OK. Boop, and then it put that right there. If you want to add, a lyricist is the person who does the words for a song. A composer is the person who writes the music, so that would be you. Me. And then title, Monday Showcase. Okay, and then I'm just gonna create a melody. Now, one thing that's kind of weird about this program is as soon as you start writing, you'll notice these durations turn into the rests. I'm not sure why it does that. I thought that was kind of weird when I first started using it, but now I'm used to it. So you'll see it clicked over to the rests. You could still hover over it and it'll say whole rest, half rest, quarter rest, eighth rest, 16th rest. So if you're not sure, that's okay, they're still there. Now it's automatically selected as a quarter note. If you don't want a quarter note, you can come up here and change that to an eighth note or a 16th note, half note. And my favorite part about doing these softwares is, excuse me, it tells you how many beats are left in the measure. So I put in a half note and it says, okay, you've only got this many beats left. So I'll click another note. Excuse me. Oops. See, I changed. Excuse me. You see, I had a half note. Excuse me. Got a frog. You see, I had a half note, and then when I clicked on that half note again, I had the quarter note selected, so it changed it to a half note. All I have to do is go up and click that half note again, and it'll change it, okay? To put in your next note, I'm gonna use my arrow buttons on my keyboard, and I'm just gonna hit next. And now that rest is highlighted, so now I'm gonna be putting in my next note. So I'm gonna put in a quarter note, and then it says, all right, you've only got one beat left, and that's gonna be either a quarter note or some eighth notes. So I'll slide over with my arrow button, and this time I'm gonna use eighth notes, and I'll put in a B, and then a G. Okay, let's hear what I have so far. Sounds kind of dark and mysterious. Okay. Stop. Go back. And I'm just going to keep going. Okay. So again, if I say, I know I've just finished that measure, but you'll see that note is still highlighted orange. So if I try to go on and say, okay, my next note's a quarter note, it's going to say, you can't fit a quarter note in that measure. It's got to be an eighth note. So you have to hit the next button over so that it knows that you're doing the next one. So I'm going to do quarter note. And you can use your mouse and select which line or space you want, or pro tip, you can use your keyboard and type in the note name that you want. So if you want an F, you can just type in F and it does it automatically. If you want a G, slide over. If you want a G, I'll just type G. Slide over. I want an A. And I want that to be an eighth note. And then a G. And then I'll slide over. I'll do an F. And then next measure, I'm going to do all eighth notes. Oops, that didn't slide over. I want that to be a quarter note. And we'll do a half note. Okay. Now notice when I put in my last note, it wanted to give me more space to write, so it put in another measure. I don't want that measure. I just want to do a 4-measure melody. So I'm going to select that measure just by clicking on it. And then up here, there's a plus sign, and that means add a measure. And then the minus sign is delete a measure. So I'm going to hit delete, and then it'll go back to these 4 measures. Now let's see what I came up with. Oh, that's just lovely. So I'm going to leave that for today because that's my melody. What I'd like for you guys to do, if you can access this program, I would love for you to play around with it just because it's fun. And instead of just writing it on a piece of paper and not being able to hear it, this program allows you to write it and then actually hear it. So some of you have asked for some opportunities to use some composing software, which is why we're bringing it up. I want you guys to just know that it's out there. There are so many things that are free right now. So let's take advantage of it and give you guys an opportunity to do some things that we can't usually do in class. So play around with this today. I just want you to get the basic idea of using the program, and then tomorrow I'll give you an activity to do in the program. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Boop. And then I can go back to here and I'll click on my scores and it'll show up in my scores. Monday showcase. You can see this is the first thing I did. I just wanted to see how to use the program. Oh no, that's the one that we just did. My scores. There we go. Oh, I did 2 parts. I was fancy. Whee! Okay, so just play around with Noteflight today, make an account, see what you can do with it, trial and error before you have your activity that you're actually doing on it tomorrow, which, hint, hint, will be a 4-measure rhythm or melody exercise. You can do treble clef or bass clef, and you will be using quarter notes, half notes, and eighth notes, and then you can throw in quarter rests, half rests, and eighth rests, but I'll give you a limit on how many rests you can use, okay? All right, you guys have a fantastic day. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and sorry it's grainy today, but Riley is very, very chatty, so I didn't want her in the background. I hope you guys have a great day and a great week, and see you soon.